Everybody, welcome back to Final Resonance TV, episode number 62 of Van Halen Stories. Today I have an amazing guest all the way from LA, California for you. Previous guest, brother, you might remember Tom Broderick from episode 37 of Van Halen Stories. His brother Rick is with us today, and Rick is his older brother, and goes way back in the Van Halen story, all the way back to when Edward was in elementary school. And we're going to talk about that detail. But welcome to the show, Rick. I'm so glad to have you. And
thank you.
Known about you for a long time through your brother and of course your older brother Rob. Tell me a little bit about your background. You know, you guys grew up a block from them, from Los Lunas, right? Pretty much.
Right. We lived on Allen, maybe about a half a block.
Right.
Right when you exited the alley, our house was right there.
Right. And the liquor store, which has become sort of famous, is the little spot where they carve their names in the or carve Van Halen in the sidewalk. Do you know anything about that? You know who did that or when that happened or anything about it?
I don't know anything about that. I know it's there, but I don't know when it was done or anything like that.
Yeah. So just you're walking distance from your house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. So it's an amazing place. A lot of people go to check that out and leave. You know, when Ed passed, they all left the flowers and things there, sort of a remembrance.
Yeah, I went there when there was the memorial up there and at his house.
Right. I remember hearing about that. So tell me about your background in music and how's this all get started with you? You're in sixth grade, apparently, when you first run into Edward. Are you musical at this point?
No, I wasn't musical. I mean, I like to listen to music at that time. Mm-hmm. But the first time I met Ed was somebody in my class said, "Hey, there's this new kid in school, and he can play Wipeout, the drum solo from Wipeout." So I remember going to, I don't know, lunch or recess, and there's this new kid, little kid with his cap on, and he's beating away playing the drum solo from Wipeout with his hands on the benches. So that's my first introduction to how I met Ed.
Right. What school was that?
That was Jefferson Elementary. That was the sixth grade.
Right. And so there's a lot of stories about that school and him in the first few years of his life in Pasadena. You know, there's a house over on Oakland that they kind of came to initially and then ended up on Los Lunas.
Right.
So from that point, how did you met him, watched him do this at school, then what happened?
Well, I think the next time I saw him was me and my brother Rob had paper routes delivering the Pasadena Star News. So, you know, after school we would go and, fold our papers and get ready to go on our routes. And that's when I saw the same kid with the hat quietly standing there folding his newspapers. And I go, that's a kid from school. And then I hear this other guy with kind of a loud, boisterous laugh. And somebody said, "Oh, that's his brother, Alex."
Right.
So that's how I kind of knew Edward and Alex.
So was Alex bigger already?
Alex was bigger, and I think he was like 2 years older, I think.
Right.
So, and he was a little louder, and Ed was more quiet.
This is how old, though, that at this point they're still maybe early teens?
Well, sixth grade, we're like 12 years old.
Yeah, right.
So Alex might have been 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's stories of Edward being pretty athletic, which was something that I just kind of happened on through all the different things I've talked to people about. Did you recognize that as a young kid? Was he that you could tell, or
not really? I remember later on in junior high, like in ninth grade, all of us got the idea to try out for the football team. Mm-hmm. So we all tried out for the football team, and I don't know if it was the first practice or the second practice, Ed was complaining that he hurt his wrist, and he couldn't play the guitar, so he was done. He said, "No more football for me."
Right. Wow.
Yeah, but that's the only time I really remember seeing Ed do anything athletic, and I think he did it because we all did it, and none of us had any interest in sports. We just wanted to try it.
Yeah, there's a video, there's a famous video, family video from somebody that's out on a beach and he's playing football, and it's probably when he was more like 15 or so, but that's one of the things that I've seen over the years. But now, when you were in between you in the paper routes, what was your relationship with them? Did you become like buddies, or what was?
I think what happened next was this was at Jefferson Elementary. We went into the auditorium for an assembly.
Okay.
And there was Ed on stage with his guitar, with Jim Wright, Danny Gilligan, and a guy on drums named Robbie Callahan.
Okay.
And it's like, and I don't think I really had met Ed yet, but I had, seen him around, and I go, that's the new kid. So anyway, they went on, they were on stage and they played 4 or 5 songs, and I jotted them down because I actually do remember.
Okay.
They played Wipeout, they played Pipeline, they played House of the Rising Sun, and I'm not sure. There's 2 songs I think they played, but I'm not sure. They could have only played one of them. One of them was a song, Gloria.
Right.
And the other one was I'm Not Your Stepping Stone.
Okay, wow.
But I remember that clearly, seeing those guys on stage, and it's like, wait a minute, I know Jim Wright, I know Danny Gilligan. I didn't know they were in a group, and it was amazing to me.
Yeah, this would have been during the Beatles period, right? This is just the Beatles.
Yeah.
That
It's
happened.
great, yeah.
Everybody was doing bands, right? That was a thing.
Everyone was doing bands, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Beatles, it's like for Van Halen, they were the ones that made me want to do music. But from 10 years before me, or a little bit further, it was the Beatles. That was the thing. Ed Sullivan, 64.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot from a lot of people.
Yeah, so I don't exactly remember how we got together. I remember Rob telling me he met this kid that could play Day Tripper on the guitar really good, and that was Ed. So somehow we hooked up and we became friends, and we spent a lot of time together.
You ended up playing though, right? Something.
I did not end up playing at that time.
Really? Okay. But do you now? Do you play now at all?
I play a saxophone.
Okay, that's what your brother told me.
Yeah, I play saxophone. I started the saxophone when I think I was 15 or 16.
Okay. Well, what that
A little later.
Yeah.
I had an acoustic guitar at that time when I was in 6th grade.
Right.
But I ended up trading it to Rob for the bedroom. Because me and Tom were sharing a bedroom.
Right.
And then I said, well, look, I'll give you the guitar if I can have the bedroom. So I gave him the guitar and I got my own bedroom.
So where did he end up?
He shared a bedroom with Tom.
Okay, there you go. There you go. That reminds me when you say that, because the Van Halen home, you apparently you were over there at times. Do you remember anything about it?
It's funny because I remember only being over there, I don't know, not a lot. It seemed like Edward and Alex spent a lot of time at our house.
Okay.
So, I would go over their house, and I remember once his dad showed me a saxophone and stuff, and I go, oh, wow. But I don't remember spending a lot of time there. They seemed to spend more time at our house hanging out.
Yeah, because it was a parallel there. You're talking about the rooms that they say that Edward didn't. He had sort of like the back hallway as his bedroom, is what I've been told. I don't know for sure, but that's some of the discussion has always been. There was a little alcove back there somewhere on the left, maybe center to the left after the kitchen, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
I don't remember actually seeing the whole house. I would just go in through the back, through the alley, and just be in that back room area.
Right. There still is a space on the left side if you're looking at it from the back. That's sort of almost like a sunroom. I don't know if that was there then or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had multiple people that have been in there over the years and it kind of explained it to me. But yeah, Tom had been there. He said he was there when his mom fell asleep while they were practicing Black Sabbath. Did you meet his mom?
I met his mom. I met his mom more than his dad. Usually when I would go over there, his dad wasn't there.
What
But
was
I did
mom?
meet his mom. She
Yeah,
was to me, she was a nice, sweet, small lady.
yeah,
She was always very nice to me.
yeah. That's what I've heard. Everybody that had interacted with her and dad, they all say, Jan, and they were all really cool to him and spent time with
Yeah.
him. And yeah, it's cool that they were cool parents like that to everybody around the neighborhood. So there's this thing that happens, in '68. This famous photo that Tom and I don't know what you guys had shared over the years of this jam with Edward in your living room. And it's your brother Rob, I guess, in the photo playing guitar, right?
No, Rob was actually playing drums.
Okay, that's right. That's right. And then who's playing guitar? With
Ed's playing guitar. A guy named Neil Gromley is playing bass.
Okay, so that's what I'm seeing from the back. So he sort of turned his back to the camera in this picture that I have.
Yeah, there's a few pictures from that party, but most of the other ones are of the people there, the guests.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Edward's playing that. It looks like a 335 style guitar.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, Bill Maxwell playing guitar too.
Okay,
Yeah, Bill
that's
Maxwell.
it. Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that name. And behind Edward, we were just talking about this with my friend from Guitar World, Chris Gill. There's a Fender amp, and your brother told me that somehow Edward might have acquired that and eventually bought it from him. I don't know how that exactly went, but he said he possibly bought it from him at one point. But it's in that photo as well.
My brother Rob had a Fender amp. I'd have to look at that photo to see if it's the same one, but Rob had I think it was a deluxe reverb amp.
That's right.
And when Ed went on the first tour, he wanted to borrow it.
Right.
And for, backstage warming up and everything.
Right.
So he borrowed the amp. Rob never got it back. He complained about it for years. He did get a check from Van Halen for $100, and he never felt the $100 was enough for the amp. But he complained about that for years.
Wow, that's funny. So,
Yeah.
But he was a drummer.
Rob was playing drums, yes.
But did he play anything else?
Rob also played guitar, but I think at that time he had started first on drums.
Okay. Yeah, so did Ed, and that's when you mentioned Wipeout, how he gravitated to drums. The paper route was his way of paying for the drums that he bought, apparently.
Right.
That's what he always said in the interviews. So he's out there whipping papers, and then his brother comes in and takes over. And that leads to the guitar and how, one of the most amazing historical things of the switching of the brothers' instruments and then what happened with Ed after that.
Right. And, it's funny how they were able to make some money off of paper route because I didn't make any money. I didn't make any money at all. It's like the people didn't pay me or whatever, and we had to pay the money ourselves, but I didn't make any money on a paper route.
Wow. So maybe it was that painting the numbers I've heard about where they painted the numbers on the street and then they charge people for that. You ever heard that story?
I heard the story, yeah.
Right, and they got in trouble because I guess somebody called the cops on them, and they.
But I remember there's a photo of Alex playing sax and Ed playing keyboard, and I told Alex, I go, if you would have stuck with the sax and Ed would have stuck with the drums, you guys would have been like the Dave Clark Five or something.
Right, but they loved that band. That was like that's all Ed ever talked about when he talked about his inspiration to start playing.
Yeah.
I guess the drums with that particular song and the way that drums are featured in it. It's pretty wild. So did you, when he was little, like in the early days, you said he was quiet and his brother was more outgoing. Did you feel like as you knew him through life that he was more of he was more reserved and sensitive and more shy even as he grew up, or how was your take on it?
Yeah, I think so. As you got to know him, he'd be more talkative, but he was a pretty quiet guy. I was pretty much the same, and that may have been why we got along so well. Every morning, when we started junior high, we would walk to school every morning.
Right.
because, he'd come out the alley and then I'd see him there. So I'd cross the street and then we'd start heading up Allen to go to John Marshall Junior High.
Right.
Oh, and then a block up the street, we'd meet David Emerson.
Okay. Right. The Emersons. Yeah.
So we would, so we would walk to school every morning, smoking cigarettes, and
which is wild because you see those pictures of Ed when he's like a little teen smoking cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
All of us were smoking cigarettes. We thought it was really cool, and Ed was, I remember, really good at blowing smoke rings.
Yeah, he did that later in all these videos that you see in the '80s of him doing that.
But he was good at it even as a little kid.
So Marshall Junior High School, as I've been there in town, I always go by there, on the way up that way to PHS and all that. Tell me a little bit about Marshall Junior High and anything that happened there with Ed that you remember, or Alex.
Well, Ed went there in the 7th and the 8th grade.
Okay.
And then the 9th grade is when he got kicked out. He got busted for having a joint. So he got kicked out and got sent to continuation.
Okay.
Which my brother Rob was going to continuation at that time also.
What is continuation, like detention or a thing or what?
Continuation was another school in Pasadena. They used to, for short, they used to call it CT. So it was another school in Pasadena. It was pretty much where they sent all the delinquents.
Okay. So
like my brother Rob would continuously cut school. So he got kicked out of John Marshall in the 8th grade and they sent him to continuation. And then Ed in the 9th grade, they sent him to continuation. So it was another school.
Okay.
It was down there on Colorado.
Okay.
Over close to Madre or something, over by Blair's Speed Shop, by Arby's. It was somewhere in that area.
Okay.
So it's where all the bad kids went.
And so how long did they have to go to continuation to get back to school?
Well, Ed ended up going there. So he went there for the 9th grade. And then I believe he was there also in 10th and 11th grade.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing him at PHS until I think the 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. I don't know why he had to stay there that long. It seems excessive, but I guess at that time, having a joint, there was talks about deporting him and all this other stuff. I think at that time it was a pretty serious thing.
Right.
So he was there for quite a while. But I would see Alex all the time at PHS in the hallway. And he would I'd pass him in the hallways. He's always like to poke me in my ribs with his finger.
So you guys are, of course, preview to the Van Halen rise in town as musicians. Tell me what you remember about any of these backyard parties, any other events where you saw them play, that kind of thing.
Well, I remember them playing at like in the summertime. There would be these youth. They call it youth clubs, but it was like a dance. And I remember them playing outdoors. Outdoors.
Up in the parks, right? The different.
No,
parks?
This was at John Marshall.
Oh, okay, cool.
This was at John Marshall. They were playing. I remember them playing outside. And then there was a church like 1 or 2 blocks up, and a pastor there used to let us kids hang out there. And I remember them playing there a few times, just playing around, having fun.
Right.
So those were the earliest times of seeing them play.
With Mark Stone, I would imagine, right? Is that right?
Yeah. At that time, that would have been Mark Stone, I believe. Yeah.
Right. And Jim Pusey, which was the keyboard player.
Yeah. I remember the keyboard player. It must have been
a little later or something.
Very short-lived. I heard about him, but I don't remember seeing them play with a keyboard player.
Yeah, there's that photo of them at the dance studio up there in Pasadena. It's out there, and Jim's in it, and Alex and Ed's got the gold top, and it's no longer there. Whatever was there burnt during the fire that was left. But yeah, there's those photos. But that was, he was playing guitar by that point. So once they hit teenage, I guess you guys went to some of these backyard parties, of course.
Oh yeah, we went to as many of them as possible. The thing was, is you had to get there. You had to get there early because the police would break it up. There'd be the helicopter, and the police would break it up. So you had to get there early to enjoy the band because, but little by little, the parties started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then that's when he started doing like shows at the Civic.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have a story for you. That
Sure.
Rob's 14th birthday party.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That part we
Alex,
didn't elaborate. We needed to elaborate on that.
yeah, Alex wanted to get some booze, so him and I walked down to Allen and Villa to the liquor store,
Right.
and he was going to ask somebody to buy him some booze. So we're waiting around, and he didn't find anybody that he thought was cool enough to buy him booze. So we ended up walking back up the street, and right there on Allen, where the entrance to the alley, there was these, I think, a couple of roommates. And to me, I don't know how old these guys were, but to me, they looked like grown men. And anyway, they started talking smack, and Alex, was at that young age was a wise guy too. So anyway, they start getting in a fight, and Alex is on the ground trying to keep the guy off of him. And to me, these guys are like grown men, and I'm like a 13-year-old skinny kid. So I run across the street to my house to the party to get some help. So everybody comes outside, and then the fight breaks up, and that was pretty much the end of the party.
Right.
It's like,
The birthday party, right?
the Rob's birthday party. That was his 14th birthday party, so that was 1968.
Right. We kind of discussed this that it was in June of '68.
June of
And
'68, yeah.
yeah, that's the same month I was born in '68. That weekend, it was probably a weekend. It probably the 14th was actually on during the week. I found out, but it was probably that weekend.
Yeah, the weekend before, weekend after, but
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's how the party ended because everyone ran out of the house to see what was going on and to break up the fight. And these guys, to me, these guys were older and they had cars and
Yeah.
so
Your
so they
parents.
were they were they were real tough guys. They weren't like some of the fake tough guys that were hanging around our group. They were real tough guys.
See, your parents apparently dressed up the living room very nicely with lots of streamers and
Yeah.
you see it in the photos that they did such a great job for his birthday party.
Yeah, I don't remember who put up the streamers, but yeah, I remember that. I remember my mom kept coming out, who wants soda?
That's so cool. Do you remember that jam that's in the photos? Do you remember if it was like sort of an organized thing where they were playing certain songs or what?
Um, I don't remember really what they were playing. Probably at that time, probably one of the songs was "Sunshine of Your Love"
Yeah.
by Cream, maybe "Inagata Davida" by Iron Butterfly. Other than that, I really don't remember what songs
Right.
they would have been playing at that time.
Right, right, right. I was talking to a guy named David Perry about the culture of the time, and we were talking about car culture and how that was a thing in Los Angeles. Do you remember that in particular? Do you remember those kind of things, or because the boys, Ed and Alex became very big car people. I don't know if that was something that you guys saw early on or not.
Well, I remember Alex sold my brother Rob his first car for $15. It was a green. I'd have to check. I remember Alex told me what model and make it was, but it was a station wagon, big
Right,
hideous green thing, and
right.
he sold it to Rob for $15. And I remember Rob and I were trying to spray paint it black with just the cans, and you didn't get far with a couple cans of paint, and he didn't
Right.
have that. Rob didn't have that car very long, and then he sold it, and he got a '57 Chevy.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's an upgrade.
Yeah, that was a big upgrade. But I remember at that time Ed wasn't driving, and Alex was driving the Opel Cadet from his
Okay.
parents.
Yeah, we see that
Yeah.
that in photos sometimes in some of these like early days Van Halen photos. It's in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and I've heard that like from your brother that there was times when Ed would like take guitar strings or something to strap down the doors and some crazy stuff to keep the gear
Yeah.
in.
I heard those stories too. I don't personally remember that, but
And
yeah.
then the blue van, which is what your brother talked about a good bit, is what they would use the blue van to transport stuff. And
I remember the blue van. I remember that well.
there's a famous photos that Niels Lozauer took over by David Lee Roth home where they took all these photos in the late 70s, and they had the motorcycles, the two Yamahas, which were probably a
Right.
YZ80 or something, maybe a YZ100. And then they set them up near that wall that's down right before the canyon down there below Dave's house. And of course, the blue van is in that. And it looks pretty rough. I mean, the color looks pretty rough. It doesn't look like some kind of, like it was a very nice van.
No, it wasn't. It was just transportation.
So cool, man. That's wild. The whole Los Lunas, that area, I always wondered, because your brother told me that it's pretty much unchanged from that period to today. Is that true? Is that what you feel like?
I would agree with that. I don't get to Pasadena, excuse me, too often, but when I do, it looks the same. I mean, our old house pretty much is the same. The corner Allen and Villa pretty much looks the same, and the homes, are all pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful. Those streets are just so beautiful. Right in that area, in particular, I've stayed at some Airbnbs, in the general vicinity of that.
Right.
And that particular set of streets over there is just super wide and beautiful.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the streets were wide and a lot of trees and things. Yeah, a really nice area, and it was close to school.
Right.
Walk to school. Walk
Yeah.
home. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, just going over there and kind of retreading those steps that you guys would have taken all those years ago. Everything's fairly close. All the different parks, like Hamilton Park, and some of these places I knew they played at over the years. Sierra Madre up there on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Playhouse and all those beautiful areas. I just really discovered how beautiful some of that is. Altadena, of course, as well.
Pasadena, right?
Did you ever go to Maiden Lane, to the little practice house they practiced at when they were with Michael?
No, I never went there. Never
Okay.
went there. Yeah, but last night I was thinking of a story that early Ed story.
Okay.
There was a biker in our school. There was a wannabe biker named Dale Zakis. He was like a tough guy.
Okay.
But the only reason he was a tough guy because he had an older brother, Willie, that was an actual biker. Willie Zakis was in the Los Compadres motorcycle gang, I believe.
Okay.
And anyway, Ed gave him some guitar lessons, and taught him a few chords. And I remember seeing Willie Zakis at a party later, and he was actually playing guitar and actually got better by playing these chords. And because of Ed giving him guitar lessons, he could wear motorcycle boots.
Oh,
Where everybody wanted to wear motorcycle boots because they thought they were cool.
right.
So Ed was allowed to wear motorcycle boots, but everybody else that tried to wear them, they'd go into a party and somebody would say, "Hey, take those off."
Oh, wow.
They'd have to take off their boots because they weren't allowed to wear them. But Ed was, because he gave guitar lessons to Willie Zakis.
Wow. That's wild.
So I remember Jim Wright and all my friends, having to take off their boots or hide them outside. I just shook my head and go, I don't know why you guys wear those things, because I didn't wear them.
Right. That's crazy. So as the band starts to play the whiskey in those places, did you attend any of that stuff?
I remember going to see them at the Whiskey. I remember going to see them at the Starwood, the Pasadena Civic shows.
Right.
All the back parties. At the same time, I was doing my own thing too. I was in a band in Pasadena.
Okay. What was it?
I
What was it
was
called?
in I was in a funk band called Stone Cold Sweat.
Okay.
So I was playing saxophone. This was around 1974, 1975.
Okay.
So I was doing my thing, and Van Halen was doing their thing.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. What was Rob doing at this point?
Rob was, Rob was, I don't think at that time Rob was playing any instruments. He was just working.
And Tom was helping them out, right? Helping Van Halen out.
Yeah, Tom was helping Van Halen out. He became the sound man for Van Halen. But Rob was still playing, not drums anymore, but he was still playing guitar. But he was mainly working a lot
Right.
at the Roma Gardens in Pasadena.
Okay. Wow.
I actually worked at the Roma Gardens washing dishes.
That's wild. So the Civic shows, I got a question about that. Now, I've been over there, of course, many times over the years, and in search of the room that these shows happened, the people at the Civic told me that they totally redid that part. That was the convention area. There's Ed on tape saying he called it the pit. And I've seen the pictures. It was sort of subterranean. Is that right? Do you remember walking downstairs into the convention hall or not?
To be honest, I don't remember walking downstairs.
Okay.
But I remember the room being, huge. It was just a huge open space. It was huge. So I don't know how they like the acoustics there, but to be honest, I don't remember walking downstairs.
Okay. Yeah, because there was also an entrance on the backside that was at the level of the floor, is what I've heard from different people. So depending on which side you came in, but yeah, they had always told me that what's there now was not what was there then, but there's actually still somewhere underneath it spaces they used that were part of that. That's what
that could be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
The staff had told me that, but yeah, and of course now most people. Your brother confirmed this that they didn't play in the actual theater; they played in this convention hall, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Not the one that Michael Jackson so famously did the moonwalk in. That's the other. That's the theater. Right. Since that's such a thing right now with Michael Jackson, but yeah, people don't realize that about Pasadena Civic. Really, they kind of forget that Motown show was at the Civic. That particular thing.
I was thinking of another story about Ed last night.
Mm-hmm.
One time, one time we decided to hitchhike to the beach, a whole bunch of us. Not hitchhike, we took the bus. Some hitchhike, I think, and some took the bus. We took the bus. So we go to the beach and, we don't have trunks. We don't have towels. We don't have anything. We're just dumb, dopey kids. And, hey, let's go to the beach. Sure. So we hung out at the beach for a while, and I remember me and Ed, somehow we got a ride back with somebody. And I remember the people we were with stopped at a liquor store and went inside, and me and Ed were in the back seat listening to the radio. And then a song came on, and we were both listening to it, something we hadn't heard before. And then all of a sudden, Ed goes, "That's Clapton." And he starts... and Clapton's playing a guitar solo, and he starts trying to figure it out with his fingers right there, listening to it. And I could be wrong, but I think the song was "Strange Brew" by Cream. And I think it's the first time Ed and I had ever heard it, because we had listened to a lot of Cream albums before that. But I think that's the first time we heard that song. And Ed knew Clapton because that was his guy back then.
Right.
So he was trying to figure out the guitar solo right then and there. It was just amazing.
In his head, right? He was listening to the changes and going. He probably went right home and picked his guitar up and went for it, right?
Probably. Yeah.
They said he spent a lot of time at home on his own. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember us hanging out at my house, on a Saturday or something, and my dad was cutting the grass or grocery shopping. So it was usually me, Rob, Alex, and Ed. And we would just be hanging out, listening to music, doing nothing, just being lazy kids. And then I remember Ed would get up and he goes, "I got to go practice." So he'd go home, he'd practice, he'd have a good lunch, he'd come back, I don't know, 3, 4 hours later, we're still sitting there, dopey, lazy kids, not doing anything, listening to music. And he went and did his thing. And yeah, he was always good about playing his guitar and practicing.
Right, right. It goes back to when he was a kid, that piano stuff that he did, recitals and everything. His mother really wanted him to be a classical pianist and all that, and
Yeah, I remember. I remember his dad always having to take him once a week to the piano lessons in Long Beach or wherever it was. But yeah, I remember that. It's like, they got to go.
right,
So
right, right. Both of them. That was what people don't really realize. I guess not everybody realizes about Alex was, involved in the same exact thing.
yeah, they both went through it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story because it trains their ear as they start to figure out Clapton and all these things. They're trying.
Yeah.
To,
And what's amazing to me is later I found out that Ed didn't read music. The guy would play it and then he would play it back. That's amazing to me.
Right. He tried to fool the teacher, and the teacher kind of found out eventually when he couldn't turn the page at the right time that
Right.
for his teacher that he was messing, just doing it all by ear and everything. That is cool.
Yeah.
And that was probably very attributed to the early development of his piano, even though we probably don't think about the tapping and all that as being something that in his head would have connected through the piano part. But when you're playing those two ranges, you're hearing things. You're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I remember when we went to 5150, I remember the big piano being there, and I asked him, I go, "Do you still play the piano?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I find it really relaxing."
Really?
Yeah. So he still played the piano.
Yeah, I think it was your brother told me that he had gone. I always thought that I found out more and more from different people that he did go back to when he moved up on the hill in Studio City. He did come back to Pasadena occasionally to reminisce or whatever, and I didn't really know that. And that also when he lived, his parents moved up by the Pasadena Golf Club. He moved them up there. Mm-hmm. That they would come. They had that house Los Lunas as a rental for a while, because I know people that were living there after they had moved, and he would come by and check on the house himself. Like make sure things were good. And I don't know if you heard the story, but I'm sure your brother said this to you, is that he went by there and the shrubs weren't cut or whatever, and he went and knocked on the door and said, "You need to cut the shrubs."
Oh no, I remember Ed telling me that when we saw him, and when did we see him? 2019, I think. He had just bought the McLaren.
Oh, okay.
And he had drove over to Pasadena. He took some pictures in front of the house with his McLaren, and yeah, I remember Ed telling me, yeah, he knocked on the door and told the guy to cut the hedges. Those hedges are getting kind of long. Don't you think you need to cut them? And
the person probably didn't even know who he was. Because
I think Ed said he recognized who he was.
Oh, really? Okay. Because there's been different people who didn't, and of course they know about the history when they move in there, because people come by there constantly all the time,
I can imagine, yeah,
to see it, right? And so yeah, and it's been. Mom, I found all the records on this, and it was sold in '86 after Dad passed, and of course they already had this other house up in Altadena there, and I guess she lived there until the end. But yeah, it's an amazing journey that they made. And when they get into the '78 and they get signed, what's your exposure to them after they kind of just take off with this whole thing?
I remember hearing "You Really Got Me" on the radio, and just being so pumped. It's like, yeah, Van Halen, there they are on the radio. I just couldn't believe it. But we all felt that eventually it was going to happen, because every time we would see them, they would just get better and better. They would just, they just continue to improve and get better and better. So it was good to see that. But, we had kind of lost touch, even though he lived half a block away.
Right.
Once he went to continuation, and I don't really know why we kind of went separate ways. He started doing his own thing, and I started doing my own thing. I started playing the saxophone, and we kind of went our separate ways. But I would always see him playing at the parties, and we'd give a head nod and say,
Right.
"What's up, Ed?" And see Alex, and Alex liked to always punch me in my shoulder. I remember he used to take great joy in punching right me in my shoulder.
We did that too in high school. We called it frogging people. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
You take the knuckle and you would hit somebody in the muscle the right way, and
Yes. Oh,
it would hurt so
yeah.
bad. So your brother had said this too, that you guys did feel like by watching them that they were gonna eventually do something with this.
Yeah, definitely. We all felt that was going to happen. And Tom, excuse me, Tom. He was fortunate to see all the gigs. I mean, he was working the soundboard, so he was there for all the gigs.
Yeah. Did you go? Did you ever you go hang out with him on the soundboard ever when he was mixing? Or
I didn't. I know Rob did. I didn't. No,
right, right. Did you? Did you?
but I did go to some of the shows,
Okay.
Starwood and Whiskey, and
So the first tour, did you see any of those shows on the first tour in the any Black Sabbath shows?
no, I didn't. And this is hard to admit, but one of my biggest regrets in life is that I never saw Van Halen when they made it.
Okay.
I never went to any of their concerts. And
Wow.
I don't know why. You just kind of take for granted that they're going to be there forever,
Right.
and
Right.
and then they're not. So I always regret that. Yeah, I saw them at all the parties. I saw them at the clubs. But once they became headliners, I never went to their shows. So I always regret that I never did that.
So what did you think when you did see them, like on the Jump video or Hot for Teacher, all these things? What was I mean, like, because you knew these guys so personally, to see them doing these roles and doing this stuff.
I think the first video I think I remember seeing of them, I think was
Pretty
Pretty
Woman.
Woman. Pretty
Yeah.
Woman
Yeah.
was the first video that I remember. And I remember popping in a VHS tape and recording it and watching it over and over. And it's like, there they are. There they are.
That's wild.
But yeah, it's like incredible that, kids you used to walk to school with every day and hear play music all the time. All of a sudden they're becoming well known and famous and releasing albums and doing really well. And we were all, as Pasadena natives. I mean, we were born and raised in Pasadena. We were proud. We were always really proud to see them do so well.
Right, right. It's crazy to think that, like you said, they become this monolith of the '80s, and it still
Yeah.
kind of resonates, even. There's all these tribute bands that are out there doing their show. They've influenced so many different bands, and everybody Van Halenizes everything because they were sort of when I think about it, for me anyway, they were the kind of the first band that would take a cover and turn it into their own thing. They would make it
Right.
their own, and it became making it your own has become a thing. Like, I don't know whether Van Halen was like the only band that ever did that, but certainly one of the ones that popularized that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're the first one I remember doing that. Then I remember going into the Guitar Center or something way back in the 80s, and I remember seeing all these striped guitars. It just became the thing where all of a sudden everybody was striping the guitars.
Yep, yep. I have one from '84 when I was 16. I bought a striped Explorer. And
Yeah.
that became the explosion of graphic guitars was it had to be Ed. I mean, there was nobody that was doing much of that I can remember before him, and everybody wanted to personalize everything. It was like
Right.
it was like we were talking about car culture, how people always personalize their cars like that at a time, and it became maybe it was a bleed over from that period and that idea that you could mess with your stuff. Do you remember anything about the early striped black and white guitar? Did you see it back you saw it in the clubs, I'm sure.
I saw it in the clubs. I remember when Ed got his Les Paul,
Okay. The gold top.
the gold Les Paul. I remember when he got that, and he loved that guitar. He loved the hell out of it. He couldn't play that thing enough. I remember when he got that. I wasn't there when he got it, but I remember seeing it shortly after. And yeah, he loved that thing. He loved the sound of it. He loved playing it.
Yeah, he got it at
But
Music for Everyone, which was up there in Sierra Madre up by the Playhouse.
right.
It's still, the building's still there. Of course, it's not what it was, but it's still there. But yeah, that was the drums and the guitar. I believe happened at the same day or whatever, maybe.
Yeah, I remember seeing a receipt or something for that online, and
Yeah,
but yeah, I remember the guitar, the black and white one. I think the guitar I remember next was the Ibanez, the Destroyer.
yeah. Became the Shark.
Yeah,
It was white.
yeah, yeah. I think I remember that one next that he was playing,
Yeah,
and then I think after that I remember seeing the black and white striped one.
yeah. The Shark. That's the one he modified to death, right?
Yeah,
But originally it was natural finished, and they painted it white, and then he chopped it up and painted it red. And then he didn't like it anymore. So he borrowed Chris Holmes's one that Chris Holmes bought apparently at the same time at Sound Chamber. Now, your brother had, of course, been there. Had you ever been there in Sound Chamber?
I don't remember Sound Chamber. I might have been there, but I don't recall going there.
Do you remember any other music stores from town that you can recall?
Barry and Grasmick.
Right.
I remember going to Barry and Grasmick a lot. As a matter of fact, that's where I ended up taking sax lessons at Barry and Grasmick.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking sax lessons with a guy named Warren Marsh.
Okay.
And at that time, I didn't know. Yeah, at that time, I didn't know Warren Marsh was well known in the West Coast jazz scene because he played with Art Pepper and all these guys, and he ended up being in the band Super Sax. Yeah, so I remember taking sax lessons there, but Barry and Grasmick was a store we would go to a lot.
Was it at full, Ed moved pianos, he said, there to pay for that Marshall, apparently, but is what he said. But that store was somebody, I think it was Wiley that it told me it was like more than just pianos. Is that right?
Well, yeah, because the saxophone I rented from them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rent it from there, but no, they had amplifiers and guitars and everything, a little bit of everything.
Right.
I remember Rob and I talking about Ed working there, moving stuff, and it's like neither one of us could remember Ed working there. I mean, if he says he did, but we don't remember Ed ever having a job other than the paper route. Yeah, we don't remember him working there, but he could have.
There's a lot of other stories around Pasadena, like the Rose Palace. There's this whole story about the amplifier, the Marshall. Okay, so the story, right. You probably know it, but apparently there was a venue at the Rose Palace where Led Zeppelin had played. I think maybe Clapton had come through, or somebody, maybe Hendrix. And they supposedly had a house amp, and that house amp ended up at Barry and Grasmick, I think. And that's when this whole story about moving pianos and all this happens. Do you remember any of that?
I don't personally remember it, but I remember hearing the stories about it.
Right.
About how that all happened, but I don't remember any of that. I never went to the Rose Palace. I don't know if I was too young.
Right.
But I never went there, but I remember hearing a lot of good groups come through and play there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there's two other sites that I've visited. One is now the site of Sammy's Camera, which Ed would always talk about buying his Variac at Dow Radio. It's on Colorado, of course. Do you remember that store? Do you remember it?
I remember that store. My brother Rob and I used to go there a lot because Rob used to like to tinker with electronics too.
Okay.
So we would go there a lot, and Dow Radio. I remember that was the name of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I had no idea where it was actually, and I had gone to, and I needed some stuff from my camera, and I went in Sammy's Camera, and then I was like looking it up online, and I'm like, I was there yesterday. It's that building I was in yesterday.
Yeah.
And so then all my regulars from Pasadena talk about C&H surplus, which they have a sign now that's the vintage sign in front of still of this building, but it's not there anymore, of course. But what do you I mean, everybody apparently knew about this place, C&H Surplus.
C&H Surplus. What did C&H Surplus sell? Was that
it was like Army, Navy, like all kinds of oddball electronics, just random stuff. It was down further though.
Yeah, I vaguely remember.
Don't
I
remember it.
remember. I remember the Salvation Army. We would used to go there. We'd buy these khaki army shirts,
Right, right.
so that you see early pictures of Ed wearing these big shirts, and yeah, I remember we used to go there and buy army stuff, and because it was cheap, and we
Yeah.
didn't want typical school clothes. We wanted something a little hipper. So
That's what I've always kind of been trying to draw this line about all of this hardware that he would find and these sort of Army Navy surplus type items that he would employ throughout their career. It would just pop up randomly, like these pieces that he would just go dig up somewhere.
like
And
the big atomic bomb.
yeah, the bomb, which
Yeah.
we talked about with everybody said it may most likely was CNH surplus. Carl Jaw, Carl Jahassis. That was
Carl,
in
no.
Dred Zeppelin. He was from the area and played in a bunch of different bands there. But he and a guy named Kurt James all went to CNH, and they all think that's where the thing came from. So we haven't, nobody's been able to confirm or deny this situation. But I do think, like you said, if he was going to, I know that we all went to these places at the time, Army Navy surplus. It was a thing that we did when we were younger.
Right.
But I just saw, like one of the persons, Tracy G was on. Do you know who Tracy G? He was in Dio for a while, a little later, but he was in that area at the time. They went to see Van Halen at Golden West and all this stuff. And he said that one time he was invited to go there, they wore jumpsuits as they were loading in. And then, now your brother doesn't think this is a thing, but it may have been a one-off. And then they took their jumpsuits off, and then, they had flight suits.
Uh-huh.
This is in the clubs. So later on, Ed gets taken pictures of him in the 80s wearing these flight suits in 1980. And it's like he's carrying all this stuff from his childhood, little pieces that he's kind of thinks cool.
Right. Yeah, they could have got some of those things at the Salvation Army or CNH, things they were looking for, maybe for stage costumes or whatever.
Right. And the whole thing with his backyard painting adventures where he's painting the guitars on his mom's clotheslines out back. And
Right.
I've heard these stories about that and how he would just tinker like you were talking about with your brother.
Yeah. He just loved to experiment with trying different things.
Yeah. Did you feel like he was always curious like that from a young age? Did you see that when he was a young kid?
For music stuff, for sound, yeah, definitely for sound. Because I remember my brother Rob bought these bought a PV amplifier, and with these two large speaker cabinets.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it. I go, what are you buying? And you're not in a band, or why are you getting this? And then it was loud as hell. And I remember he was so proud of it, and then Ed came over and he showed it to Ed, and Ed looked at it and he goes, "Oh man, it's not solid state." Or no, he said, "Oh, it's solid state."
Right.
He said, "Oh, it's solid state. It's not tubes."
Right.
So Rob's ego just just deflated, and Rob was so proud of his purchase, and Ed was more into the sound of the tubes and the warm sound of the tubes and not solid state. So I remember Rob ended up selling that to a friend of Tom's.
Yeah, there's a funny thing that Tom told me about. Now, last time I was there, I find these photos of these shows of that era, 75, 76, and I try to go find these places, and document them. There was one, Lanterman Auditorium was one of them, up in La Cañada. But right by there is the La Cañada High School. And they played out on the steps by the high school. And I think he said those speakers that are in the photo were Rob's. That may have been those PVs that you're talking about.
Ah, okay. I've seen the photos, but
Yeah.
I'll have to look. I'll have to check those photos. Yeah, I've seen the photos.
I swear I was like, what? So yeah, I did this whole thing on my last trip over there to document this show because there was a photo of them on the steps, and I was able to kind of take photos myself and then make new photos and layer them on top of each other so you could see the spot with
Okay.
today.
All right. Yeah.
Mixed
I'll have
in
to take a look at that.
It's pretty cool. It's a
If
pretty
so,
cool.
that's the only known photos of the PV cabinets that I'm aware of.
They're pretty big. That's what I was going to. They had them off, off to the side. There was a PA, right? Is that what you're talking about? Was it
They probably used them as a PA, if
Yeah.
anything.
Good.
Yeah, because they were like 6 feet tall, and there was two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Because those PAs back then were like kind of like. I mean, I had one back then, and they were kind of PAs, or they could be your bass amp, or they could be whatever you could put through them.
yeah,
Right.
they weren't real great back then. Yeah.
Right. That's so wild, man. So you didn't see any shows while they were famous. So did you watch any of that stuff online when you had a chance to see it all online,
Well, I
or
mean,
TV, or like did you see
there wasn't internet back then, so I would see them. I see their videos on MTV all the time,
Right.
and whenever they would play in an awards shows or anything, I would see them play. But yeah, that was it.
So my biggest influence was when I saw him on Don Kirshner's rock concert. I don't know if you ever saw the '81 Oakland videos that everybody talks about. Everybody's enamored with.
Yeah, I've seen that online on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. So I was up late, and all of a sudden I turned to one of the three channels I had on my 20-inch TV, and there was David Lee Roth, and I'm like, "Who's this dude?" And the next thing you know, Van Halen comes on live, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the thing
Right.
that I need to do right here," because they look like they're having the best time I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
No, they always put on a show. There was excitement, there was energy. They always put on a great show.
So when they were in the clubs like Starwood or whatever, they had that same thing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Didn't matter, small place. They would just play their hearts out. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. So David Lee Roth, what was your exposure to him?
It's funny. I didn't really know David
Yeah.
very well at all. I just mainly knew Ed and Alex.
Right.
I remember around 74, 75, my brother Rob was recording a demo for them
Okay.
in our living room. And I remember I just got off work. I think I was working a split shift. So I went up to my bedroom while they're recording. And I think Tom was down there too. And I remember I kept hearing Ed say, "Dave, you're flat. Dave, you're flat." I remember he kept saying that. But I would see Dave here and there, but I can't say I really knew him at all. The same with the bass player.
With Mike.
Mike, I didn't really know them. Just Ed and Alex were the ones I mainly knew.
Right. You didn't know Mike's brothers either that were around town playing in bands.
No.
Sobolewski's, right. Okay.
Yeah. Didn't know them.
Yeah. So the Sammy era, what did you think of the Sammy era once that happened? Were you at the 78 show? You didn't go to any shows, but your brother was at the 78 show at Anaheim Stadium.
Yeah, I believe he was. Yeah.
And he was the one that told me that he saw Eddie Van Halen meet Sammy Hagar that day at that show before they were ever a thing. And
because Sammy was in Montrose, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. Playing the same day. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably where they met for the first time.
Yeah.
But the Sammy years, I mean, at the time, I thought it was decent. I thought Sammy was a better singer than Dave.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the added guitar in the group added something to the group.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back on it now, I don't like the Sammy era as much.
Mm-hmm.
I like the early stuff. I mean, to me, the first two Van Halen albums were just great.
Right.
But the Sammy era at the time, I thought it was good. But now when I look back on it, it just doesn't hold up as well for me personally.
Right. I think it changed the whole vibe of it. Went songwriting more than Ed, and more than the energy of that first few those albums. I think that changed a good bit. I mean, I liked it like you. I was fine with it. I thought if they're going to find a second singer, they probably couldn't have found a better one. I mean, they tried.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so that really worked out for them. So in 2019, your brother and I talked about your final visit up there at 5150. Had you ever been to 5150 before this final visit?
No, that was my first time.
Okay. So tell me
My first time.
all about this final. How does it happen? I mean, I think he told me that was it your brother sent him a message through email and somehow it happened.
It was my brother Rob. He wanted to get in touch with Ed and had no idea how. So he sent a telegram.
Telegram.
A telegram. And Ed responded and he goes, Rob, I can't believe this is you. I haven't talked to you in 30 years. So anyway, they I guess exchanged phone numbers and started texting back and forth. And then Rob asked Ed if he could give him my number. So then me and Ed started texting back and forth. And Ed was a big texter. He would text a lot.
I've heard this.
Yeah, where Alex is the opposite. Alex will call you and talk to you for 20 minutes, but not a big texter, and still not a big texter to this day.
All right.
But Ed was a really would send a lot of texts, and I remember, but we probably texted for a couple years, and then one day at work, he called me. And Ed, I was shocked. He called me because he never called me. He always texted me.
Right.
So he goes, oh man, we got to get together. And what about this weekend? I go, well, hold on, slow down. I go, let me coordinate this with Rob and Tom so we could all, make sure we can go see you.
Right.
So we set a date, and not too, maybe a month later, and then me and Tom hopped in Rob's truck and we took a ride up there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember calling Ed when we were at Tom's house just before we were going to leave. He goes, yeah, it's a little hard to find, it's a private road, blah, blah, blah. He goes, I'll meet you at the Wells Fargo, around the corner. So we get there, I get off the freeway, I text him. He goes, oh, I'll be right there. So then zoom, zoom, he pulls up in his brand new McLaren and, big hugs. We hadn't seen each other for years.
Right.
And so we follow him up, to his house, and the gates open, whoa, and here we are at Ed's house, and he pulls his car in behind his Lamborghini there, his blue Lamborghini, and we go inside, and we just had a ball, just talking and hanging out, and then after a while, we go. Ed goes, you guys hungry? Yeah. So we went out to Carney's, which is like a hot dog place on Ventura Boulevard or something. And so we went there
in the truck. You went in the truck.
We all squeezed into Rob's Toyota.
I guess not the McLaren.
Yeah, not the McLaren. Yeah. I should have hopped in the McLaren when he met us at Wells Fargo. I could at least got a ride in it, but
right.
we just followed him. So we went to this hot dog place, but then we came home and we ate the food there in his kitchen. So we just hung out in his kitchen, just talking about old times, talking about the paper routes, and just fun old times. And then he took us to the studio. So, we went inside the studio and he played us a couple songs from Wolfie.
Right.
Wolfgang's first album hadn't been released yet.
Yeah.
So I remember he was playing some of the music, playing it really loud too. I mean, Rob had to step out of the studio. It was too loud for him.
Right.
But so he played us a few songs, and all the while, I'm taking pictures, and then he gave us the tour inside, so I got my iPhone and I'm just snapping away and, taking pictures of guitars and amps and just everything that I see.
Right.
And I took a lot of pictures.
Right.
And it was a great experience. And then back in his kitchen, we took a lot of pictures of each other, the four of us, and, each of us separate photos. So we took a lot of photos of each other. Right. And I remember at that time he had back pain.
Right.
And I remember he had this old ratty old pillow in his McLaren that was for his back. Okay. And I remember later he was wondering if it was going to be cancer, and then it ended up being cancer. So they had to he said, if it's cancer for the back, he goes, oh, that's okay. They'll just nuke it and I'll get rid of it. But I guess it was worse than that. And then he ended up putting bolts and screws in his back, like I think like 20 of them. So I remember he was in the hospital for a while, and we were texting back and forth. And I remember saying, Ed, if you want, I can either smuggle in a double for you, or I can bust you out of there. And he goes, a double sounds really good. But he was in the hospital, and he goes, I swear, man, once I get out of here and I heal up, we'll get together again. And it just never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a shame. It's a shame because we would have liked to have seen him again, because we had a good time, but it was only an afternoon of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conversations probably were wide ranging as far as what you were reminiscing about. You just mentioned that he went over to Pasadena with his McLaren.
Yeah, he was showing me pictures because he had pictures that he had taken over there. And so the pictures are pretty recent. I remember when we're walking into his kitchen, I remember seeing like DMV stuff, on a table right there. And I go, man, I should have looked at that. I wanted to know what the registration price is of a Lamborghini or something. I should have looked at his DMV paperwork, but I didn't.
I had Steve Rosen on, who's one of the journalists from the 80s and who took a ride in the famous black Lamborghini Countach with him. And so, his driving skills and the way he drove was well known, as well as the volumes that he listened to music in the 5150 is well documented as well. Apparently, It is brutal, and everybody says that. Yeah. So the room itself, when you were in there, a lot of people say it was pretty. They're always surprised that it's as small as it is.
Like the control room where the mixing board is.
Yeah.
I was surprised how small that room was. That was pretty small.
Right.
And then there's a small window in there, and it points to the studio. But yeah, that was pretty small. That was small. The studio overall, yeah, it was smaller. There was no drums in there when we visited. Right. So I was wondering. I wonder where the drum kit normally would go.
Right.
And I remember him showing me the whole wall of tapes.
Right.
Recordings. I mean, it was just incredible. All the recordings that are sitting there on the shelf.
Right. Yeah, we're hoping those eventually come. Well, there's discussion. Alex has been out there talking about there's an album in the can with music, and that they may find a vocalist for that, and they want somebody. He said he wanted somebody of their era that could do that. And I don't know what the deal is with David, but you never knew what was going on with that. I mean, Ed, it seemed like they were great partners, like you said, in the early days with the club stuff. Right. They were very aligned in what they wanted to do and how they presented themselves, and of course all that other stuff that happens after you explode like that is a whole new world, I guess. And he I've always kind of been interested in his personality. I did meet him. It was very brief, but he seemed super warm to me and everybody that was there. And I've always kind of felt that from his smile. It was something you would probably have seen it since the day he was a child. Did he always beam the way that we were used to seeing?
Yeah, always the same smile. Yeah, always the same smile. Yeah.
It's got to be, I don't know whether you saw that with his mother or his father. Did you see that same kind of look from them, that radiance?
Maybe more with his mom, not his dad as much. But like I said, I didn't meet his dad too much, and when I did, his dad was usually pretty serious.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but Wiley told me he met his mom in the music store when they met, and he took from that meeting with Eugenia that she was the one that had the thing that Ed inherited in his face and the way that he transmitted his personality.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think when people look at him, you just think about what made Edward so appealing to so many people. and it's just that boyish grin.
Yeah.
Looked like he was having fun all the time. Was he serious though when he was young? Like really? I mean, was he? Did you find him like kind of a? He would be that way, but then he would be this other way too, a very serious person.
I mean, when it came to his music, he was serious.
Right.
But when he was playing, it looked like every time he was playing, he was having fun. I mean, to him, it was enjoyable. It was like this is what I love to do. So he always like smiled and had a good time. I remember he was singing when they didn't have a singer back then.
Right.
So yeah, but he always on the stage, yeah, it was different than his normal quiet personality off stage.
Yeah, right. Because that's always a thing where musicians, as you know, so a lot of us are insulary in our pursuit to become great at what we do. You know, it's very a very solo kind of project to develop yourself as a player.
Right.
And then you all of a sudden are having to be a performer now, and then that's a whole new world. But for him, you know, this natural ability to just beam across his enjoyment to other people seems like if he would have not been that guy that didn't smile, he looked down, or he didn't transmit, we would all still thought he was an amazing player, but I don't know that we would have been as attracted to him.
Yeah, that's right. He wouldn't have the same mass appeal, I think, to the public if he was just serious and head down, and which I think Clapton at the time when he was with Cream, I think the head was down and he was just playing and
right.
More into his music. But
I've heard Roth, and a lot of people would, there's a famous story in Greg's book about how Roth got him to cut his hair into the famous look that we know so well. At the time, they kind of like, he got him a proper haircut. He looked really cool, and he was like, Roth was trying to get everybody to compliment him, like tell him this looks great so that he would feel good about it, And apparently it worked because we all knew that beautiful look from him back in the day. It was just such a iconic thing, but yeah, his personality, I always wondered how, Steve Rosen, who I talked to, the writer, and even Josh Obrecht, who was his first interview, they all talk about his personality and how he had that quiet side, but he also had, the serious side. And I always wonder how sensitive he was. And Steve said that he thought he was almost too sensitive to be in the business that he ended up being in, the high pressure business that he was in. I don't know how you thought about that, but, when you saw him in 19, I mean, how did he seem then?
He was fine. I mean, the same old Ed. I mean, it's like we had seen each other, just recently. I mean, it was the same Ed, and we just had a great time just talking about old times and, the paper routes and junior high and high school and backyard parties and everything. We just had a blast, just, reminiscing. And then, finally, because he was sick at that time. He had to take medicine. He was just getting tired, and he had to go to sleep. And and then so as we're pulling out, he's texting away. He's texting me, yeah, we got to do this again, and blah 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 blah. And unfortunately, Alex couldn't make it that day, and then we never did get back together again.
Well, maybe that'll happen someday. I know that your brother has seen Mike. He's run into Mike, and said Mike's always been like he's been, and I've met Mike too, and he's just a great guy. And but what a band and what a life that you got to, your life and how that connected at that time on those streets right there. It's such an amazing thing to be a witness for. And I've seen the sort of same things happen with friends of mine that have done things not like Van Halen, but amazing things with their life that you would have never.
Right.
But I did have a sense, like you did, about those people when they were kids, that we would see something like that one day. I don't know why I knew that, but I just did.
I mean, I didn't necessarily think it originally, like at the backyard parties. I just thought, there are like a lot of bands playing the backyard parties. I mean, I was in a band, we played backyard parties.
Sure.
But it was some of the shows when we saw them at the Civic where we we looked at them and go, wow, these guys have really gotten good, and these guys are going to do something.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
you saw the development that happened up to the Civic, and so there's the stories about that being 2,000, 3,000 people. Is that an accurate number?
I believe that would be an accurate number because from what I remember, that room was just huge. It was just huge.
Right, right,
And
right.
I remember one of the backyard parties. I remember, I think Michael Anthony had just joined the group, and all of a sudden I see him hitting these foot switches, and he had these floodlights that came on, different colors, yellow or whatever, green, and I go, wow, we had never seen a backyard band have like floodlights there at a backyard party. We thought that was great.
I know because Tom said that too. He said Michael was in charge of the light show, and he would like green, blue with his feet,
Yeah.
and as he was playing.
Yeah, I think it was three. I think it was three floodlights, and I think they stole them from apartment complexes. And
Of course.
yeah,
That was amazing, man. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me today for a little while, and it's a joy to meet you. I've been hanging with your brother for a number of years now, and we got to hang out, and hopefully next year you come meet us over at the boat where we go, and
boat. Yeah.
yeah,
I'll definitely next time I'll have Tom tell me, and then I'll swing by.
Yeah, the Clearman's if you want a steak.
Yeah, definitely.
Because every time I go, I got to go there and eat the steak and the amazing food there. I love that place.
Oh yeah,
I've gotten
it's
to
the
be,
best.
I gotten to almost feel like a resident eating at all the cool places and knowing where everything local is, and it's fun.
Yeah,
It's fun for me.
very
So I'll be
cool.
back out there in January. So I'll definitely get with Tom and get him to hit you up, and we'll hook up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you for doing this, man. I know that all the people that watch this channel know that I'm a deep cuts kind of person, and that's what a lot of them come for. So it's a joy to have you and share your experience. I remember when I first saw your comment underneath Tom's YouTube, that particular episode, I definitely wanted to have you on and talk to you about it. So we finally did it.
I don't remember what my comment was, but
You were talking about that. You said that you had saw Ed in sixth grade. Wipeout was the thing that you had.
okay, all right. How I first met.
You had mentioned that, and I actually had screenshotted it a couple of days ago because I wanted to remember that as part of our conversation. But yeah.
Okay, well, no, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope I was able to maybe add some stories that maybe people hadn't heard before.
You definitely did, and your brother had his, take of the 2019 get together, and you had just, your own take, and it was just as good but different.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wanted to know about those final years. They wanted to know how he was, and the texting I've heard about. I heard through different people that he was a texter.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool thing. You have not seen Wolfgang yet live.
I have not. No.
Have you heard? You heard the music a little bit there.
I've heard the music. I have not seen Wolfgang. I have not met Wolfgang. But I still am in touch with Alex.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys will get back together.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be great. I hope that happens. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. And
Okay.
we'll talk in a few months.
All right.
All right. Thank you, buddy. I'll put this out. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.